Alright, a very good evening to everybody, good afternoon to others, good morning I suppose to maybe some of you never know. But thank you very much for joining me today. This is my annual stream, which I do after every video that I release, going over the subject of the video that I actually released, a few discussion topics, a few theory topics, and especially with patch 6.4 being so close, we'll dive into that as well, especially since we got a few little teaser updates. So yeah, the subject of the video was the Warriors of Light on the Other Reflections. This was a dive into everything we knew, or know rather, about the Warriors of Light, or the Spectral heroes as they're known, or the Phantoms or the Spectrals, that appeared during Shadowbringers at the behest of Elidibus. Essentially, he summoned the souls, or part of the souls, or the Aether, or we're not exactly sure what the process was, but he summoned them forth from the Other Reflections in order to do his bidding, and also to empower himself as a primal under the guise of the Warrior of Light, of all things. I went through everything about the Spectral heroes in the video, so there's not really much else to discuss about them. However, everything seems to be leading us up to our going to the Other Reflections. We don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but it is going to happen. Primarily because the main story for the entire Event Walker has not shut up about the subject. Y'shtola has been going on and on. I'm going to find a way to the first. I'm going to open a way to the Other Reflections. I'm going to do the Other Reflections. I'm going to get there. And then she ended patch 6.3 with saying, alright, I'm going back to Sharlayan. Instead of us finding a way back to the Void or getting another Void Gate or whatever, I'm just going to continue my research in opening a proper way in order to get to the Void and also bianceable to the Other Reflections. So we're looking forward to her discovery about that, but we don't know exactly when that's going to be. However, we do have some hints about when it's going to be and how it's going to be. But I'll get to those in a few minutes. I missed this storyline, to be perfectly honest. Like, this was actually a very good way of capping off Shadowbringers in my mind, bringing back the guys of Ardbert with Elidibus and capping off the Ascians or the Undersunder storyline with that. It was a good way of doing it, and everything else then was capped off with Endwalker essentially. But the Ascian story essentially ended here because Fandaniel doesn't identify as an Ascian, and we haven't seen the other Ascians since. So Lord only knows where the hell they went. We still don't know exactly everything about them. I did speculate in the video regarding what the nature of the Spectral heroes actually is. We do know from his dialogue, for example, the dialogue that's actually on screen, ironically enough, but you'd assume I require my champions to be summoned in their entirety. I do not. Their souls needn't even be whole. And this is the exact line that had me thinking, just going, what the hell did he do to these other heroes, adventurers, warriors of light from the Other Reflections? These self-proclaimed, more than likely, warriors of light, who likely do have the echo. What condition were they left in? Like the Spectral Necromancer, the Spectral Berserker, the Spectral Thief. What condition were they in after we vanquished their souls? And I laid down the questions in the stream. What happened to that portion of themselves? Was that portion just a manifestation of their own personality in the Aether itself? Or did they actually physically rip a part of their soul like Dilla Brea? Are these people okay? Are we going to go to one of these reflections one day and see a catatonic Spectral Necromancer? That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking one day we go to one of these reflections and the Spectral Necromancer or the Berserker will be lying in a bed in a coma because this asshole, for lack of a, well, I have plenty of words to call him, but this asshole ripped their souls out. Or did he? We don't know exactly what it is. I mean, we know he says it, and their souls needn't be whole, but we don't know exactly what this means.
In the name of the light, I shall vanquish the darkness
with Amaroth in the back.
Deliver the world from its doom.
Oh.
And who might you be?
After staring at this cutscene a number of times, I'm really thrown off by...
Who might you be?
It's primarily the lighting of it, but it looks like his head is detached from his body. Well, I know he's standing with a slant like that, he's in his stance, but his head kind of looks detached, primarily because his whole body is glowing. So, let me just show you again. Just look at his head. His head looks strange in this thing. But as I said, he is kind of... Flare. Drop it. And our little Spectral black mage in the background there. Unfortunately, he doesn't say anything. I've always been a fan of the Berserker job in Final Fantasy. Or, not the Berserker job, but the Berserker ability. So you just trigger it and all of a sudden you get extra attack power and you have one character just going ham on the enemies themselves. So I've always been a fan of Berserk status when it came to Final Fantasy. So the Berserker himself really embodied that, which I really enjoyed. The Necromancer is probably the most important one in the video because she's the one with the actual dialogue. The Berserker doesn't say much. He kind of says something at the start, and then he goes about like Hulk, smash sort of stuff. But yeah, I think it's a good time now because there's not really much else I need to say about this video, but I will go through the comments and the questions. I've answered a few of them, but I haven't answered all of them. I mainly want to answer them on stream. It's a fair callback for the Spectral heroes in that dungeon. The Spectral thief would take offense, take offense rather, on being called such. He prefers treasure hunter. That's a very good point. He's like a sedan in my opinion, isn't he? He very closely resembles the Amano artwork of Locke. That's also a very good point. I don't know why I didn't bring up Locke first. The Necromancer is a callback to Lena Charlotte Tycoon in her Necromancer Job outfit in Final Fantasy V. I really need to play 5. I feel like I'm missing out on a lot of stuff by not playing 5. The 4 heroes you control are from the world of light and are actual warriors of light. The Spectral Barbarian is the one that people are still the most confused about who that may be. Because there's not really a comparison you can make with him. I think there has been some like berserkers in the series. I can't recall some of them, but they were relatively simplistic if I recall. I commented back, the Necromancer seems to be the one people want to meet first, and she has made a heck of an impression. I just can't help but wonder what her story truly was. Like, people have been dying to see her, primarily because of the outfit. The outfit is striking, it sticks in your mind. Also of note on Lena, she was the only party member that was... I'm assuming that's possessed by Melazine, which was a demon of the void in Final Fantasy V. So that could be the reason for being tainted while still being a warrior of light. That's also a good point, she could be possessed. Or there's a darkness within. Pretty sure some of the warriors were summoned from the source because among them were spectral dragoons which wouldn't exist in worlds without dragons. With that being said, I wonder why we haven't heard anything about the effects of the summoning on those individuals. And I was like, that is an extremely good point. Dragoon arts were specifically developed in order to fight with the power of a dragon, or fight against dragons. Well, it was originally, if I recall, to fight with the power of a dragon, but then was used to fight against dragons. Thinking about it, we haven't seen a Lambert of the Spiked Butt in a while. If you recall him, he's a dragoon that appears in the Western Highlands in a number of fates, and he's called a Lambert of the Spiked Butt because of his armor, I'm assuming. And he's like, feel the power of the butt and stuff like that, or something like that. He's kind of like a joke character. But Underscore makes a very good point. Dragoon arts are from the source. So us seeing a Spectral Dragoon and the other Spectral Dragoons that we saw, because we saw one take out our airship, if you recall. So that must have been an Ishgardian Dragoon, or somebody who picked up the arts of the Dragoon, which is very few outside of Ishgard. Not sure if we get Necromancer due to some cultural things. That's also another point. The jobs that they add have to fit culturally, not only in Asia, but also in other parts of the world, because you can't release one job and then expect it to be able to be added to other regions without lore changes, which is something FF14 developers prefer not to do. They prefer to release something that doesn't get neutered, for lack of a better word, when it comes to the West. Other games have had to do this in the past as well. World of Warcraft is a backwards example of it as well. If you recall, when World of Warcraft was released, well, World of Warcraft has the undead race, so they're like flesh and bone characters. You can see their bones hanging out to them, and their flesh is kind of hanging off their bones. They're a cool race. But when World of Warcraft was released in Asia, they had to modify the undead race that it doesn't show any bones. So if you look at, or I think it's probably still the case now, if you look at an undead character on a WoW server in Asia, you won't see any bones. That's a reason they had to change things, because of culture, essentially. This might have been China, I'm not really sure. I think it probably was China, but this was a long time ago, back when I played WoW. But that's an example. So FF14 has to do the same thing. They want to release something that they don't have to change from region to region, because it is released in a lot of regions. Not only to Japan, it's released in the West, it's released in Korea. They have to jump through a lot of hurdles in order to do things. So yeah, it's a very good point. Necromancer is a very dark kind of job. So it would have to be something really specific. But then again, we did get a Necromancer in there, but it was only one fight, so you never know. Alright, Red Spine says, one thing I found interesting, the first Spectral hero, the Spectral Swordsman, has the hairstyle and armor set that are references, homages to the FF14 or FF1 warrior design. Well, the sprite design anyway. Those gloves and the chest piece are very specific after all. And considering how FF1, your name, your characters, it makes a touch amusing that Thancred asks who he is and gets no answer. That's a very good point, if you think about it, because they didn't really talk. And you're like, who are you? And it's like, I don't have a name. FF4, Final Fantasy 1 was very special. But Respine, you make a very good argument here that it's paying a direct homage to Final Fantasy 1, and that's kind of like an inside joke where Thancred asks, who might you be? And he's just like, you're getting no answer from me, just like us, we nod. So that's a good catch. I didn't think about that. The heroes that Elizabeth summons at the halfway point in the trial are the main cast of Final Fantasy IV. You can even see the Palam and Porum twin casts through the rest of the fight. Is that true? I'm gonna have to go back and look at that. And people are like, what? Yeah, the Dark Knight is even wearing the Baron Helm. I didn't notice if there were other unique spell names, but the little white and black mages were casting twin cast. And there's also a green haired summoner and a warrior with a two-handed axe that looks a lot like a hammer. Now that you look at them, they are very unique, aren't they? I didn't really look at this picture like properly, but if you look at them, they are very unique. I mean, look at the summoner, the fox ninja, and the Baron Helm. So the Dark Knight is wearing the Baron Helm, and then there's, I'm not exactly sure what this helm is. Yeah, Baron Helm. That is a very good catch. That is a really good catch. Oh, there's better pictures of them. Yeah, okay. Alright, so there's the Bard. And I'm not exactly sure what he is. I'm not even sure what this helmet is. There's the White Mage and the Black Mage. That is a very good catch. Wow. Summoner. Dang, that is a good catch. I'm gonna have to dissect that a bit more. Hello, Cognate Summoner. But that is a very good catch. Very nice. That is a brilliant catch. I don't know how I didn't catch that. That is amazing. Now, Zach has to say, I hadn't thought about the effect it might have on the other shards. I wonder if it would be possible that since Elizabeth only summoned a part of their souls, and specifically their devotion to the Warriors of Light, that the effect of those who were summoned was less pronounced. If Graha was summoning souls in their entirety, which left the science bodies behind, I think it would be possible that if only a fraction of their soul was taken, then the majority of it plus the body would remain. Perhaps like a minor sundering. That's a nice way of putting it, a minor sundering. And maybe this was just a mass dizzy spell that affected those who were summoned. Far less dramatic of a result, but I still know little about what exactly constitutes a soul in game. To be honest, none of us do. They've tried describing it to us, we don't fully understand either. Comparing our Warrior of Light to the people at the first, we are 6 to 7 times rejoined, and they are presumably 1/14 of an Amarotine, and yet corporeal similar enough in the eyes of Y'shtola to not make a specific note of. Also, even though he directly confronted us, Elizabeth was still acting as emissary and attempting to maintain balance. With that in mind, robbing multiple shards of their heroes would run counter to that mission, as they likely to start plummeting away into whatever alignment was undermined their rejoining, rather. In my opinion, all of them are Warriors of Light, and the concept of Beyond the Rift could represent a distinct type of multiverse, not the 14 shards that emerged after the Sundering. That's a very good point as well, because FF14 exists in its own universe, but also it's influenced by the worlds that have come before in the 13 games that preceded it, plus all the spin-offs as well. Like all the gear that we get, the characters that we've seen Lightning, we've seen Noctis, etc, etc. There's no explanation of whether or not they're from a shard, which is not likely because their worlds are different than Aetheris. Which means that there's an entire galaxy out there. We flew to the end of the universe, or the end of our galaxy, I think. But there is precedent, essentially, for that. Yes. I like to think that rather than being left totally helpless and fully transported to another dimension, that the warriors who were susceptible to the call entered a form of sleep like a lucid dream state. When their aether was dispersed, their consciousness would be rejoined back to them, much like astral travel might be considered. Not totally safe, because a part of their soul or aether may have not been restored, just depends on whether soul is a restorable resource in this case like aether is. As for the boss, that's a tough one. Is it possible that they were brought more fully in because it's easier to manipulate for one reason or another? The Berserker and the Necro, I can see why they might be, but the Thief or Treasure Hunter, I'm not so sure. But yeah, it's a tough topic because we don't know exactly what constitutes a soul. We know about aether, corporeal aether, stuff like that, but we just don't know the truth. I like this theory that they went into kind of lucid dream-like state, and maybe their aether was summoned forth, and then that aether would replenish later. Because our aether does retain a certain part of our personality, which would explain why they're not exactly all there, but they're mostly just mindless acting on instinct, sort of thing. Alright, Nuclear Necro. Love the name, by the way. If the Spectral Necromancer foreshadowing and your theory end up being true, and we end up getting a Necromancer caster job for 7.0, it was one of my picks, I will explode out of excitement. Although I would also be really happy about getting to talk to some of the other Reflections Warriors of Light in a less deadly scenario. Would be really cool to hear their stories, their problems, and how we could potentially help them. Like, it could be an entire plot point that we go to a reflection and they're bereft of a Warrior of Light because theirs suddenly just dropped unconscious one day. So we could be helping them the same way that we helped Hildebrand. Blue Mage Danny stated that, I can't imagine getting Necromancer for lore reasons. Some people have stated that due to some countries not doing it. Necromancy in FF14 is achieved by torturing a soul and tethering it to a corpse. By its definition, an unfathomable evil just can't be justified from a heroic perspective, although we haven't crossed the line, but we have walked it, essentially, and taken a few steps back and forth. But Blue Mage Danny makes a very good point. But none of these are evil, just dark. That's a very good point as well. When it comes to FF14, there is no good and evil. There is no good or bad. There is just one perspective and another perspective. FF14 and Final Fantasy in general has made a point in stating this. There's light and there's dark. There's good and there's evil. But they're just polar opposites as well. They always exist. It doesn't mean them literally like you see in our world, like people going around bloody shanking people or robbing people all the time. Like, it's not the same thing. Final Fantasy 14 and other games like it, they give you a different perspective. Darkmind Austin states, I don't think the Necromancer is a void sent hero. The powers of the 13th seem somewhat tame and mostly normal. With the way a certain friend tells us the nature of the other reflections could surprise us. I have a deep feeling that the Necromancer comes from one of the remaining reflections. I also think that what we know as the Warrior of Light isn't the exact same, or may have different connotations. Well, the people of Aetheris gave us that moniker. I think Elizabeth just seized on that and started disseminating it to the other reflections. After all, time moved differently on the other reflections. With Necromancer and Berserker established in the story, might this be a logical step for SE to introduce 2 new jobs into FF14? Also, given what we know of Y'shtola, Archmage is also a possible third. Not that it would probably ever happen, but it would be interesting. I myself would love to have a dual axe wielding job that combines the abilities of Dancer for ranged with abilities that hit hard closer to your targets to build up a cast bar, to unleash either magical ranged attacks or magical melee attacks, while possibly having support utilities that both Dancer and Red Mage have, i.e. Vercure and Verraise. Well, I think the Red Mage probably ticks all of those boxes already, but a melee caster is something people have been asking for a while, and I did come up with a couple of ideas about what they could be. But yeah, a melee caster is something that people really want, and it's probably one of the last unique casters you can do, because the casters we have kind of cover all the bases. So if the Spectral Necromancer was from the 13th, and with what we know about the souls on the 13th being locked in a deathless cycle, she could have been Zeros' mother, fighting for her love tainted by darkness, a warrior of light at the same time. Let me read that again, actually. If the Spectral Necromancer was from the 13th, and with what we know about the souls of the 13th being locked in a deathless cycle, she could have been Zero's mother, fighting for her love tainted by darkness, a warrior of light at the same time. Hang about. I shall fight for the world, and for you, my heart. Now that I think about it, we were assuming, or I was assuming, that I just fight for the world and for you, my heart. I thought that meant a lover, a husband, a wife, something like that, like a partner. What if it wasn't? What if it's a child? What if it's a son, a daughter? What if that's what she was referencing? That is a really good theory. What if it was? Like, what if she actually was from the Void? And it actually was Zeros' mother? Because we do know that Zero fought alongside her mother in order to protect people. So she was like, if not in actuality, a spiritual warrior of light. Similar to Unikalhai and Ciela. That is a really good theory. I like this theory. I really like it. Like, now that I look at this, it does make as much sense to state that my heart, which is your child, as much as it makes sense to say my heart, my love. Because she doesn't state my love, she states my heart. I love this theory. I really love this theory. This is having me thinking a whole lot now. Is it possible that this might tie in at some point to an expansion of Zero's story, because we have been getting more and more pieces. 6.3 gave us a lot more information about our past. As we learn more, is it entirely possible that this could turn out to be her mother? Oh, I love this theory. I really love this theory. Marike Grizzly, that is an amazing theory. I'm going nuts. This is an amazing theory. That is nuts. I love this idea. I want to explore this a bit more. Do you really think FF14 will continue to delve into these things in 7.0? I would love it, but I am afraid we may have seen the last of this in 7.0, I mean, considering the talk about the new story. In regards to traveling to other shards, surely, but I don't think it'll be much that Elizabeth did in the end of 5.3. I think they will. This is my reply. After all, the MSQ and Endwalker currently is directly related to lore decisions by the Ascians before the game's timeline began. All these stories are now the foundation for new ones, but they all grow from the same source. This is something I'd like to bring up further and further elaborate on. So, people are taking it far too literally that what the developers said is they're capping off the story and they're writing new ones. But that doesn't mean they're going to ignore the old stories. FF14 was built upon these stories. They're the foundation. So you can build upon them. The main story, as I've just pointed out, is a prime example right now. Everything that's happening in the Void is a direct result of Ascian interactions with the 13th and their failure to actually do a rejoining with it. It's a direct result of past happenings. So a lot of people seem to be under the impression that they're going to ignore what's happening in order to write brand new stories. That's not the case. They're just building upon it. They're not going to elaborate further on those stories, but new stories can develop from them, which is what's happening with the Void right now. You perhaps will benefit from watching Dipper Dog's analysis of this event. I'm pretty sure she's right about who the Spectral heroes are meant to be. I've never heard of this person, but I'm assuming they're a FF14 content creator, considering the subject. The thing is with me, I don't actually watch other content creators in FF14, at least. Like, I don't know who any of them are. Well, I know who the top people are. Like, I know the names, but I don't watch their channels. I don't even work with them. I don't talk with them or anything else like that. I did a collaboration with one some time ago. It was only a live stream though, or two actually, in a live stream. But I don't actively watch anybody's videos at all. Primarily because I feel that watching other content creators' videos actually affects my own thinking in terms of, is the theory I just came up with mine, or did I watch it on somebody else's video? For example, like maybe somebody came up with a theory and then all of a sudden I make a video and I'm like, I'm just repeating what this person says. I'm plagiarizing them essentially. I don't watch them for that reason, first and foremost, but also I have a habit of, like many people do, of comparing yourself to others, especially in the work that you do. So if I start watching other people's videos on a subject the same as mine, I would more than likely end up comparing my videos to them and trying to alter myself in order to try and fit or do better. I mean, it probably would be natural, but it just doesn't work for the way I am, unfortunately. So I prefer to do my own thing and do my own research and do my own ideas, essentially. So if they do elaborate on it, I'd highly recommend watching their video to see if they actually give you some good information. But unfortunately, I won't be watching the video, but thank you for bringing it up. This kind of, I'll just quickly actually touch upon it. So when you ask her about the 13th, for example, spoiler alert if you haven't seen this. What? Not only did you travel to the 13th, you encountered a Memoriate besides. Wicked white. That's nothing short of a miracle. I used to be a Memoriate myself, but I lost my powers when the Ascians plucked me out of the Void. Interesting in the fact that she got plucked out of the Void and she lost her powers. It's astounding to think that this Zero managed to survive with hers all this time. Though she claims to have no desire to save our world as a compatriot, I should still be keen to meet her. There's only so many of us left after all, those who haven't completely lost themselves. Also, I know full well that you and yours have your own objective in the 13th, but should you discover aught that might lead to its restoration, I thank you to share it with me. This line annoys me, because we've been skirting around them the entire time, just going, I'd love to share it with you, but something storyline, something side quest, something role quest has been preventing you from getting involved when everybody is screaming from the sidelines, why aren't these two people involved? I mean, for crying out loud, we've been saying it the entire time. Unu Kalhai has learned the ability to open void gates. Nothing else to say, except for the fact that he can do it. I mean, if we were able to freely change the story of FF14, as soon as they destroyed our void gate, I would have spoken up just going, alright, I'll be back in a couple of hours. I'm just going to pop over to the first real quick. Unu Kalhai, do me a solid. Open me a void gate, will you? I need to quickly drop into the 13th, if you wouldn't mind. Kick Golbez's ass and then come back. Everybody's happy. But this is reality. The Necromancer was my primary inspiration for why I think a Necromancer may end up in FF14. Primarily because if we are going to get a new job, it's going to be a caster, more than likely, because we haven't seen a caster since Stormblood. So we're well overdue, and we've gotten everything else in between that. So a caster is logical. It would balance out everything in that case, because if we get one more caster and then nothing else, I think all the jobs in FF14 would be balanced in terms of numbers. But I think we're hitting the point now where we have too many jobs. I mean, if you look at jobs in FF14 and classes in general, and you compare it to any other MMO, we have way more classes, way more things to play than most other MMOs. The only other MMOs that would have us beat are lower resource intensive ones, older ones, that require very little effort, or less effort rather. It doesn't require little effort, no MMO does. But the sort of games that require less effort in order to add a class or a job in, they're the only games that have us beat. Like FF14 just has a variety, so many. And they keep adding onto it. It's brilliant, of course, but it becomes a chore as well, because if you look at our classes and our jobs, there's just so much to level. Like I've been picking at them, but I haven't even gotten around to actually clearing them all. So I'd be hopeful just to get the Necromancer or something, a caster along those lines, and then we're happy. But that's an entire conversation. I keep veering off the conversation. So before I jump into 6.4, there is a discussion topic I want to bring up with people. It's not really controversial, but I will bring it up. Actually, I'll bring this up just beforehand. This picture got released today by YoshiP. Look at the guy. He's absolutely exhausted. Poor guy. Look at him. He's fast asleep. But this is yet another image that he's been posting. Like, he's been doing these sort of things for years, if you recall. And I have the other image right here. So in 2013, I think this is right before the release of A Realm Reborn. Then in 2017, I think just before the release of Stormblood, and just before the release of Shadowbringers. So he's been doing this thing for years, but this is his latest one. So I'm assuming this is after all of the press and stuff like that for Final Fantasy 16. I think he's just puckered out. Poor guy. He's looking a lot better though, if you've noticed that. With the pictures and the video that we've seen of him recently, he looks much more rested, because he looked exhausted for the past year. But he's looking much better now, which is good. A healthy YoshiP is a happy YoshiP, is a happy community, in my opinion. I look forward to seeing him again at FanFest. But yeah, my next topic is actually to do with chat, which is why I've actually come to Limsa Laminsa in the first place. So, there's a few things I want to... Well, this is the topic essentially. So I've been sitting in Limsa for a while. There actually hasn't been that many posts. Usually you see it in the likes of Ulda, for example, as well. But let me quickly teleport to Ulda to see if it actually comes up as well. Because there is a lot of people talking in. A lot of people lately are feeling that the main shout chats and the main party finder chats are becoming overly bloated with... I don't know. They feel it's becoming overly bloated with stuff like this. So... This person says, join our pirate crew as we sail off into the night towards wild seas and fill the air with rock and metal. Light, Twitania, Goblet. So this is a person advertising a concert. Now concerts are actually nothing new. People have been doing concerts in FF14 for years. It's never going to go away. Like, it's one of the main things that's great about our community. But people feel that these chats are actually just taking over server chats. I don't know if you've noticed it. You probably noticed it when you're walking through a city state and you notice all these people just asking for stuff. Like, an FC recruiting is perfectly... That's normal. Like, you have all these people... I don't know what they're talking about. I see Dutch writing. That's probably what Dutch is. Okay. Like, here's another one. Ready to rock your soul out. Defined. Club now open with some heavy rock and metal. Hot summer in a hot summer. Find the start of a new hot summer with the great Baller Man hits brought to you by our resident DJ. So you get stuff like that. Like, people are getting annoyed by the fact that these things are just filling up chats, because I do kind of see it, because every time I teleport to Uldar or Gridania or Limsa, you always see these people posting these sort of chats. And to be honest, they're innocent enough. I understand. A lot of them aren't, though. Like, I saw one a few days ago, which was... It started off innocent enough, and then it started going, we have sexy cat ladies and sexy lingerie to fulfill all of your dark desires, and something bondage, and a lot of stuff I can't say on a chat. And this was in shout chat, and I'm like, why are you advertising this stuff in an open chat like that? I'm just like, are you kidding me? I mean, ERP is a thing. I'm not gonna pretend it's not. I mean, I personally have actually seen ERP events. I've even been suckered into them, unfortunately. Like, I attended my last event, actually. Started off as a concert, and I went to it, and then it turned into a full-on ERP event, and I ran for the door. I was actually recording it, planning to make a video out of it. And then when I started turning into ERP, I stopped recording and I ran for the door. But that's a whole other topic. But the point I'm trying to make is, a lot of people are getting upset by these chats. They feel it's taking over shout chats. And also the party finder chat as well. Like, if you look, like, there's 111 things advertising on the Light Data Center. 65 are high-end duties, 9 in raids, 8 in trials, a couple of other miscellaneous, and then you have 28 others where most of the stuff is being advertised. So you've got people advertising their, well, sales. Well, I'm not going to talk about that. FF14 gambling, pay for Gil with Gil, and then you have all these like 80s, 90s, 2000 party where they're playing music that's not allowed to be played in FF14. We all know it, but it is what it is. I almost lost my channel because I was recording an event like that. I think a roleplay tab is probably called for at this point. Everything's under other at the moment, and other seems like a freaking hodgepodge of everything. So I think a roleplay tab for them to just have their own stuff is good. Have you checked the Fellowship Finder? It's full with ads as well. I haven't actually checked the Fellowship Finder. Let's have a look. I haven't checked the Fellowship in a while. The Fellowship system is, in my opinion, strange. Like, I made a couple, and I'm a member of a couple. I mean, it's kind of true. It's ramped up in the last couple of months or so. Bear in mind, a vocal minority of people were barely tolerating the RP Cup scene to begin with. The spam doesn't help. That's very true as well. Like, RP is not everybody's cup of tea. I love a bit of roleplay. I'd call myself a role player. I get into character a lot when it comes to my gameplay, but also the content that I create. So I do a general bit of roleplay. I'm not heavily invested into it, but a lot of people are, and it's actually really nice. Like, I like to go to RP events where people are role playing, and it's fun to watch. I barely use this in game, social. All right, thank you very much. So, like, this shows. Ah, there it is, right in front of my freaking face. Jill, thank you very much. Okay. LGBTIQ. Why do they have to have so many syllables for this now? LGBTIQA+. What the hell does that mean? I'm assuming that just means everything. They're putting everything under one tab. Okay, I'm not going to get into this. LGBTIQA+ link shell. I don't know. I'm assuming it's a link shell for just openness. I'm going to assume that's that. Searching for people to RP with. Have a specific role to fill an RP of yours, or looking for a long-term partner. Have a look here. Interesting. Searching for friendly people who want to play together in the... Yep. That's an FC recruitment, so that's fine. Savage Raiders and Meme. We all love Meme. ERP Club. Love Life. A place for singles or people searching for steamy adventures. Have fun. To each their own. I don't judge anybody at all. People are free to do whatever the hell they want in this game. I'm not going to get involved in it, but I know where ERP has been a thing since the very beginning. Like, I can remember in 2.0, people were already advertising ERP groups. And people were already writing fan content already and drawing pictures and doing everything else. Our community feeds were very small back then, so you saw it all instantly in forums and stuff like that. So you got exposed to it very easily. Growing FC. See, there's a lot of FC recruitments. That's right. Parties every other Wednesday. Cool. We do FF14 events, play other games, movie nights together, looking for more people. See, those are the sort of things I love. I like events like that. That's social events. I like stuff like that. Welcome to those appreciate lizards. Aura, welcome to... What? Hang on. Lizard Appreciation Society. Welcome those who appreciate lizards. Aura are welcome as well. Okay. Welcome to... Oh, that's the same one again. Okay, so that's advertising twice. Okay. But I'm starting to see your point. Has the shout spam continued? Like, nobody's shouting for a while now. So I'm assuming they're quiet right now. But I'm assuming they were shouting an hour ago because it's mostly around 7 o'clock these sort of things get started, isn't it? But yeah, I can see where you're going with this. Like, there's a lot of... A group of RPs from Asia, Oceania. Good. We are laid back and casual community. So there's a lot of FCs recruiting. And then there's a lot of LGBTQIA+ friendly safe space where we aim to help each other and have fun. I have no problem with that. So these sort of things are fine. Like, people advertise, people are looking for stuff like that. So all to them. But going back to my main subject of this is people are getting really annoyed by this, with chat being filled with this sort of stuff. Like, it's very quiet right now. Usually when I'm standing in Ul'dah, people are yelling at the top of their voice every couple of minutes. Especially on a Friday, because most of these events happen on a Friday. And most shouts are in Limsa and Gridania, but I honestly got out there because people were just talking about random stuff. Like, for all I know, these people are having a screaming match. I don't even know what they're saying. But yeah, people are getting annoyed. I can understand people getting annoyed at it, but in the end, chats are made to be used. So if people want to advertise their events, they're all for it. I think it's just mainly the fact that there's now so many events. The game is so large and there's so many people advertising that people are just getting overwhelmed. Like, if these shouts were people going, our ultimate group is going, do you want to join us? Which never happens. But I don't think people would complain as much. I think the thing about having a separate tab for RP events could be a smart move, but I also feel just ramping up petty reports if people posting in the wrong place. Like, prime example, that ERP post that I saw in Ul'Dah's shout chat a few days ago. Like, there's a time and a place. Ul'Dah's shout chat is not the place. I'm sorry. So, the special site for patch 6.4, the Dark Throne, was updated a couple of days ago. It's just a few little tidbits, but it gave us some answers and also gave us more questions. So the first thing is the logo. Now, the logo gave us a lot of answers. First thing is Golbez sitting on his throne. We saw that throne on the moon. He has a sword, two-handed sword, which is interesting because I don't recall him actually using a sword. But if you also notice, he's not the one actually holding it. The dragon is. So this sword might actually not even be Golbez's. It might be a sword that ties into the raid. Because there's a lot of mixture between the main story and the raid in logos like this. Prime example is the sphere on top, which shows the Paragon symbol. Now, if you notice with this symbol, having this part highlighted, which is Hephaestus, it's a direct parallel to the Pandemonium logo that we got before Endwalker launched. But yeah, the main standout was indeed, we're going to assume this is Ashdaya. The symbolism is not to be ignored because Ashdaya was trapped above his throne. Right now she's wrapped around his throne, and we know this is Shadow Dragon because only the Shadow Dragon looks like this. The Shadow Dragon looks like a big serpent dragon. The horns are a little different, but it definitely could be her. I think she's going to get corrupted in some way, but I think we're going to save her. If she dies, I'm going to be pissed. I can tell you that. I am not losing another The First Brood on my watch. Thank you very much. I've already killed one. But yeah, the Dark Throne. So we get a visit from... We're going to assume this is to do with the main story, but I'm assuming he's going to be guiding us to our location. And the location in question is the Aether font, which I'll get to you in a second. But let's just go through the three images. So you have Kryl, and then you have our Gleaner friend, whose name I can't remember. I am so sorry, my friend. And then you have Zero. I'm assuming they're standing in the Aether font at this point, because you can see the Aether in the background there as well. And then you have this third image with Nidhane, the alchemists, and Ystole all standing on the moon outside of the Watcher's Palace. Not exactly sure why they're here, but it's interesting. I'm going to assume a big assumption that what's happening here is whatever we learn at the Aether font is going to allow us to make a bridge between Aetheris and the Void. But because we know that Golbez is on the moon and the moon is our target, we're going to make a portal from our moon to the moon of the 13th. So this is going to be our gateway. Instead of landing on the 13th, which is not what we don't want to do. We don't want to land in the Void. We don't want to land on its moon. So we're leaving from our moon to go to their moon. And perhaps the Watcher has some insight for us. Maybe he'll tell us, for example, I got a communication from the Watcher on the 13th. He was slain. Or maybe he'll give us insight into exactly how Golbez was able to overpower the Watcher on the 13th. Or just give us some more insight in general. So I think personally we're going to be leaving from here. Considering these guys are here. I mean, these guys wouldn't need to be here if we're just talking to the Watcher. But the fact that they are tells me we're going to be portaling from our moon to the moon of the 13th. So this probably happens at the end of the patch, before the last trial. The description is, with a gambit that would cost them their lives, the Archfiend Cagnazzo and Rubicante succeeded in destroying the Void Gate hidden from within the depths of Azadad's legacy, thus barring the path to the 13th. Yet where there is a will, there is a way, and so the Warrior of Light and allies continue to search for a new means to reach the Void. That's a good point for them being on the moon. What if Golbez is the Watcher, but corrupted? That's also an interesting theory, isn't it? What if he is? What if the Watcher... I mean, we don't know what kind of effect the fall of the 13th had on the moon as well. The moon looked fairly intact, but it's entirely possible that the Watcher was corrupted as well. So he might actually be the Watcher in a corrupted form. But maybe our Watcher is able to give us some insight into that. That's a good theory as well. And then, of course, we have the ending of Pandemonium, which is Anabasios, I think that's called. The serene expanse of the ethereal sea is marred by the sudden appearance of pandemonium, which has crossed eons to threaten the source of life itself. In what way? Which has crossed eons to threaten the source of life itself. Why is it threatening the source of life itself? Is it poisoning the ethereal sea just by being there? Is that our reason for actually having to deal with pandemonium again? We need to get it out of there. It's like a... what kind of reference can I use? If you've watched The Walking Dead, if there's a zombie walker in the well, you need to get out of the well before it corrupts the water. That's probably what it's like. Its walls loom unmanned, but you know well what horrors once lay beyond them, and in the silence you can hear a stirring. I'm looking forward to hearing what the conclusion of this is, but I've already talked a lot about that in my last stream. If you haven't watched my recap, I've talked about it in there as well. But the main meat here is the Aether Font, which we finally learned is north of the Sharlayan mainland lies the verdant Isle of Ham, a land long protected by the Forum as an academic asset due to its abundant wells of aether. Yet with plenty often comes peril, and what awaits will not so readily relinquish its claim on the island's lifeblood. So now we know it's not Eureka, as we originally thought, so it's not on the isle. But it is on an island north of Sharlayan, which was our second guess, so we were happily correct on that. And these armors look nice. Like, I like this armor. See this armor here? It looks really nice with the chain. So I do like these new armors that they're coming up with. This bear is also really cool. But yeah, the Aether Font is north of Sharlayan, which is a new island we can add to our map. Also, SE, please give us an updated map. It's driving us nuts. I hope we don't have to kill polar bears. I really don't want to kill polar bears. But I'm assuming, because look at this path here. So this path goes along here, up here. So I'm assuming we're going to land on a ship on the ice. Then we're going to walk through the ice up to the first boss. And then we're going to walk towards the Aether Font, so the second and third boss. I really don't want to kill a polar bear though. Look at them. They're so cute. And look at these two just sitting there. They look like the polar bears from the Coca-Cola ad sitting on the ice. They're so cute. I love them. Except this one. He's crazy. We got a new Unreal, which we already knew about. Additional support. So the support system is getting upgraded again, which is brilliant. I don't mind having new supports like this because I usually run dungeons by myself when I'm doing research. I usually will run dungeons otherwise. If I'm not doing research or I'm not doing a video, I'll run a dungeon with other people. But when it comes to doing research for a video, I like to take it at my own pace. And I like to run these dungeons for the first time with the NPCs so I can properly take it in. Skip Soar or disband. That's a good point as well. Skip Soar. Are we going to skip Soar this time? I don't know. This fight was very easy. I can remember when that fight first came out. I think this was the first trial when it came out with Zurban where his AoE didn't one-shot people. I think that was the main thing I was surprised about back in Heavensward. When we were fighting him and an AoE came along and you get hit by it, but only brought your health down like 80%. And I'm like, wait, why didn't that one-shot me? Everything else in these fights usually one-shots you. Zurban was the first fight that didn't one-shot you. I'm like, what the hell is going on? So something changed between the release of the Triad, between the second and the third, where this guy was no longer one-shotting people with his AoEs anyway. The other things were AoEing people and killing them, but I really love this logo. This logo is really nice. I mean, you can see her tail is just wrapped around the throne as well, so she's a very long shadow dragon now. We're going out of a lib to assume it's her. I think it is her. But that's it for 6.4. There's not much updates, but we're going to get the live letter announcement likely very soon. Or we already did, didn't we? I think. I think the patch is going to release on May 23rd. We haven't gotten a date, but I think it's most likely that's going to be the 23rd. So book your time off. I already have. Somebody was actually asking me this as well. Or I actually saw people talking about it. Do any of you who raid the current raid tier feel that raids are getting stale? A lot of people have been saying that the raid tier this time, like, it's a good story, but in terms of mechanics and in terms of fights, they're not so interesting anymore. They're getting kind of, they're blurring together, a lot of people have been saying. I unfortunately don't raid anymore. I made a choice between content creation and raiding. I chose content creation in the end, so I don't raid anymore. It's the first time I've never completed a tier in FF14. I've completed every tier when I was current, but I haven't even stepped foot into A8S, so I don't even know what the fight is. But a lot of people have been saying that the fights are getting stale, or that entire raiding in general is getting stale. But I think it's just to the point where people are just so good. People have just turned into machines when it comes to doing raids, progressing raids, getting them done, that you just feel formulaic, I guess. P6S is a bit of a snooze. P7S is a glorified dungeon boss until you get to harvests. I enjoyed P7S. P6S was yeah. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was too bad. P7S, only the end of it is fun. It is kind of a slog, if you think about it, but it wasn't too bad. P8S Part 1 is just annoying. Well, to be perfectly honest, like, with the fights that come in two halves, the first part is always annoying. So, I honestly felt, when I stopped raiding, as soon as I cleared P7S, that's when I decided, right, I'm leaving my group, and I'm going to stop raiding, to focus on content creation. For the first week, I regretted it. I was just going like, oh my god, I've never actually stopped raiding mid-tier. What the hell am I going to do? And then after a week, I'm just like, honestly, I'm fine with it. I'm not really missing anything. And then I started to see all the topics of people just going, raids are boring. So, a lot of people are just think that raids are boring at the moment, which I can't really talk since I haven't really finished them. And I don't even run ultimates, so ultimates are kind of ticking the boxes for hard fights. What's wrong with this picture? Sir, the umbrella is supposed to go over your head. It's raining. It's... What's the point? What is the point? He's just... This is just funny to me for some reason, because it's still like... Why? This shouldn't be as funny as I think it should be, but it is to me. Just that. I didn't even know the umbrellas could do that. I thought they always stood above your head. I'm assuming that's just for like an extra emote, or just like a change of C pose when you're holding an umbrella. But if it comes out in the rain and it does this automatically, what the hell is the point? It is the cool way to hold an umbrella, not the practical way. That's a very good point. Like, a lot of people today do things the cool way instead of the practical way. They'll carry their bag down the street in the cool way, not the practical way. Like, for example, people having a backpack on one shoulder, making them do this. That's the cool way. That was back in my day. That was the cool way, instead of putting it on both shoulders, which is the practical way. So, that's a very good point, Cherry Soda. Now, I just stood by him for one reason, just to show that he's playing. Usually I keep performance music off, especially when I'm recording or doing a live stream, primarily because they play copyrighted music that is usually so authentic that it actually triggers the algorithm on YouTube to actually detect copyright content. But I just hate... Alright, I'm gonna say it. I hate the performances in FF14 for one reason. Right, so we have the system that allows you to play an instrument, and if it was just that, I'd be fine with it. What I don't like is the fact that every song that you hear these people playing is entirely macroed. So they've just made a macro in some sort of software or whatever they're using in order to control this thing. They press play and it plays it through their character. It's not music. Like, if somebody was legit playing the actual instrument, where you could actually see their pauses, see their little variations, I'd be happy with that. But people pressing a macro and playing a song has no interest for me. I don't have no interest in standing there listening to a person press a macro, press play. Which is why I don't go to these DJs either, because these DJs are just literally pressing play and the song comes out. I mean, I get it, they're putting some amount of work in order to make it work, I guess, unless they're downloading it, but it's boring, and in my opinion, it's lazy. Like, if somebody was doing a concert in-game right now and advertised, I'm going to be playing music, it's not going to be macros, I'm going to be playing it entirely manually. That is something I would go to see. If I was going to watch a person play an actual instrument like this manually and play a song manually, I would be interested. Going to an event to listen to a guy press one button so a bloody character plays a macro and he sits there watching it, not interested. Yeah, Maple Story 2 as well had a prime example of this. I loved the music system in Maple Story 2. It was entirely macro based as well, but a lot of people did it manually as well. You could code your MIDIs. Like, I used to do that as well in Maple Story 2. I used to code MIDIs of Final Fantasy music and play them. But that was a long time ago. But in FF14, I guess I've just changed to the point where I'm just like, if I wanted to listen to a song like this, I'd go onto YouTube and listen to it. I have no interest in listening to a guy press a macro in order to try and impress people by making me think he's actually playing the instrument, which he's not, because I know for a fact that his tempo is far too fast and it wouldn't be a person, because he's doing the pitch exactly timed, because I know it's a macro. If it was a person playing an actual instrument, there'd be slight delays, slight variations in their own song. So yeah, that's just me. That's my gripe about the performances in FF14. Nice onion. It's kind of wild that YouTube is so strict and it picks up the MIDI sounding instruments of the actual song though. I've said this story multiple times, Jerry, that when I was starting my channel, some of the first videos I made were a combination of me doing lore videos, doing discussion videos, theory videos, but the fourth type of video I did was documenting and recording live events in game. So it was going to these like the events that you'd see posted, like Christmas events, people playing Christmas music, but the music, because it was on these macros and because of the number of instruments we have these days, they're so accurate that YouTube triggers them. It took down a number of my videos, I had to take down the rest, and I got 2 copyright strikes. I had to live under a rock for like 6 months until those copyright strikes actually wore off. And those copyright strikes came from the fact that people were playing copyrighted music with instruments in Final Fantasy XIV. This is the reason that you don't see many people recording and uploading content like this. And I've noticed it as well. Like, when I started doing it, people were surprised that people were recording their events. Like, people stream it, of course, but I guess streaming is just a little different. But I'd guarantee that some of these streamers would get copyright striked or flagged or whatever. But it's just dangerous, which is another reason why I don't like the performance system. People paying all of these copyrighted materials that just get you flagged. But yeah, everybody, thank you so very much for tuning in. As usual, I'm going to chop this video up and do a stream recap later. I'm working on my next video, or my next 2 videos to be specific. I hopefully get those done soon, but I am doing a bit more research on the topics before I do upload them. Jerry, it was a very pleasure to meet you as well, and have a good weekend to you and everybody else. Thank you so much. Oh, I just got my first spam chat sitting in Gridania. It's 4 PM here in Michigan, so they are just starting up. Have a good weekend. Thank you very much, Dill, and you have a lot of them to look forward to. It starts ramping up just after people leave for work, or after people leave work, to around 7 o'clock when these events usually start. So between 7 and 8 is when these events really kick off. I'd say probably go to one, because some of the events are very enjoyable, but just be careful. If they start advertising a back room, run for the door, is all I'll say. But everybody, have a good weekend and have a good one.